النفس المطمئنة, the tranquil soul. Now we are beginning to explore stations that are hard to come by and require vigilance and exertion. This soul, النفس المطمئنة, or the tranquil soul, has reached a level of calm and trust in Allah that distinguishes it from the inner turmoil of the inner stages. Its hallmark is serenity, contentment, and the soul is distinguished by stability in remembrance, dhikrullah, stability in tafakkur and tadabbur, contemplation of higher realities. The Quranic source for this soul is a well-known verse from Surah Al-Fajr. يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة, O tranquil soul, where Allah addresses the soul directly. This verse is not merely poetic. It marks a station of arrival to a lofty and beautiful degree, for Allah addresses this beautiful soul directly. This soul has achieved a state of inner stillness and tranquility, طمأنينة, no longer easily shaken by external trials or internal anxieties. It is no longer disturbed by the world's tests or the fluctuations of fortune. It trusts its Lord completely. The limbs still respond to the demands and challenges of the world, but the heart is still. At this stage, the soul has reached a level of rida, deep contentment with Allah's decree. And not out of carelessness. On the contrary, it cares deeply. But because the heart is tethered to God, to Allah, it is content with His will, not its own. It doesn't object to what befalls it. It is neither greedy in prosperity nor despairing in hardship. Please know that this doesn't mean the soul is passive. It acts, worships, and strives, but with a heart that is at peace regardless of outcome. At this stage, the soul realizes it is not perfect and comes to accept that it will never be, yet Allah is still ever near, and that the soul is still deserving of His intimacy and love. One of the key signs of this soul is emotional and spiritual equilibrium. The person no longer sees obedience as a burden, but as a joy. Worship becomes a natural extension of the soul state rather than an effortful task. Love of Allah dominates. Taqwa is balanced in this soul, not paralyzing, but reverential. Hope becomes a light constantly guiding the soul, not a fleeting feeling. This soul contrasts with the earlier stages, with the absence of internal conflict, while the self-reproaching soul in nafs al-lawwama and the inspired soul in nafs al-mulhama battle with urges or veer between light and shadow, the former more so than the latter. The tranquil soul in nafs al-mutma'inna has largely subdued its lower impulses. It doesn't feel the same agitation toward disobedience, nor is it haunted by guilt or pride. Importantly, the tranquil soul begins to experience tasting, dhawq, at a deeper level. It senses the beauty of Quranic verses, is able to engage with the Quran and even the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ at a deeper, more meaningful level. It finds sweetness and intoxication in dhikr and lives a rich awareness of Allah's presence. The tranquil soul, an-nafs al-mutma'innah, is a moment of repose on the path, a station of tranquility and arrival into trust, surrender, and into love. It is the soul that has become a home for Allah's remembrance and in turn becomes one that Allah invites to return to Him with peace and divine acceptance. This is a wonderful garden along the path, but yet there are higher ascents still. There's a soul that is not just tranquil, but in its tranquility ascends higher to being pleased with Allah in every state and moment. But here, in this moment, the heart is still. And that stillness in a world of hustle and bustle, in a world of noise, is a miracle. The next stage, an-nafs ar-radiyah, the content soul. This station builds upon the stillness of the tranquil soul, but now introduces a key spiritual virtue, rida, true active contentment with Allah in all things. The content soul does not merely endure the divine decree with patience. It welcomes it. It is pleased with whatever Allah chooses, regardless of whether it aligns with its preference or not, whether in ease or hardship. The heart remains balanced. There is no resentment, no protest, and no hidden dissatisfaction. The soul is fully reconciled with the divine will. This stage reflects a deep spiritual maturity. The person no longer serves Allah simply out of fear of punishment or hope for reward, but out of love and surrender. There are many that espouse surrender and love for God, but these claims, more often than not, are not in alignment with the true divine surrender and love. Oftentimes, the claims of surrender and love are wishful, even if unbeknownst to the claimants themselves. In this stage, however, that of a nafs radiyah, the content soul, the surrender to God and love for Him are real. Because in order to surrender to God and love Him truly, one must also love what God does, and God does everything. Their servanthood or ubudiyya becomes a lived expression of deep intimacy and inner harmony, palpable to others around this person. This is not to be confused with a naturally calm temperament. In fact, one can be upbeat, joyous, and down to earth, as we would say, yet still shines with the spiritual light that others come to notice. This degree is rooted in sincere submission and awareness of divine wisdom. Even when the path is painful or the outcomes are unclear, the soul rests in the knowledge that Allah is the most merciful, the most just, and the most loving. This is the soul that says, if this is what my Lord has willed, then I am content. Not just that I am patient. This soul is pleased with the delay, pleased with the test, pleased with the mystery of not knowing, because what matters most isn't the unfolding of life, it's the one who unfolds it. This stage does not come easily. It comes after you've cried, after you've been broken, after you've tasted loss and walked through disappointment. Yet after disappointment, after you've watched your plans and hopes dissolve away, unlike earlier stages where the soul might still battle with restlessness or even question why certain things happen, the content soul has no complaint, not even internally. It has arrived to a station where it lives in quiet acceptance, radiating a kind of spiritual nobility. One distinguishing feature of this stage is emotional freedom. The person is no longer gripped by crippling anxiety over outcomes or attached to specific results. Their happiness is no longer tied to circumstances, but to the constancy of their relationship and silent communion with Allah. This soul, the content soul or nafs radiyah, is free. Free from resentment, free from fear of the future, free from the need to control or explain or fix what only Allah can heal. And when the soul reaches this place, it becomes light, a source of serenity to those around it, because it's anchored in something that this world can't touch. It's anchored in Allah in a manner that necessarily includes ritual, but transcends ritual. It's anchored in Allah not only during active worship and remembrance, but in all states and situations. This is a high station, and very few ever reach it. Yet, this state requires constant sincerity and humility, because the soul can still regress if it begins to feel pride over its condition or relies on itself rather than Allah's mercy, which is a very subtle awareness to carry. Ultimately, the content soul is one that has passed many inner trials and emerged with a heart fully aligned with divine will. it is now prepared for the next stage, the well-pleasing soul, and nafsul mardiyah, where the soul not only finds contentment in Allah, but becomes a soul that Allah Himself finds contentment with.